Evan Cross stood near the wide glass wall of Port Helios and tried not to look nervous. Outside the station, space stretched out like a black ocean filled with glowing islands of stars. Ships of every shape and size drifted past the viewing window. Some were smooth and silver like fish. Others were sharp and angular like flying cities. The station itself hummed softly, a constant reminder that thousands of beings from across the galaxy were breathing, walking, and living together in this one fragile place. Evan was human. That alone made him stand out. Humans were still new to the wider galaxy. Their technology was good, but not the best. Their ships were fast, but not the fastest. Their weapons were strong, but nothing compared to the ancient species who had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. What humans were known for was something harder to measure: emotion. Other species often said humans were too expressive, too quick to laugh, too quick to argue, too quick to care. Some found it charming, others found it dangerous. Evan had been told many times to keep his feelings under control today. He was a junior cultural liaison, which meant his job was to help visiting alien groups understand human behavior and to help humans avoid offending their guests. Today's guests were the Virelians, a tall, glowing species from a distant system that humans had only recently made contact with. The Virelians were known for being quiet, formal, and very serious about social rules. A single wrong gesture could be taken as an insult. A careless word could start a diplomatic problem. Evan took a slow breath and checked the small device on his wrist. The reception would begin in 2 minutes. He adjusted his simple gray jacket and stepped away from the window, joining the other human staff near the main hall. The hall was wide and circular, with a high ceiling that glowed softly like a cloudy sky. Floating lights drifted gently above the floor. Tables were arranged in neat lines, each one filled with food from different worlds. Some dishes steamed, some glowed. Some moved on their own. Aliens were already arriving. A group of small, round creatures rolled across the floor, their translators clicking softly as they spoke. Tall, thin beings with long arms and feather-like skin walked carefully past them. A pair of metal-bodied lifeforms glided forward, their steps perfectly even. Then the Virelians arrived. They were taller than humans, with smooth, pale skin that looked almost like stone. Thin lines of soft blue light ran across their faces, arms, and chests. These glowing patterns shifted slowly, like living art. Evan had studied them for weeks. He knew those light patterns were more than decoration. They showed mood, status, and social role. Bright and complex patterns meant high rank. Soft and simple patterns usually meant lower status. As the Virelians entered, the hall grew quieter. Even the most talkative species seemed to lower their voices. Evan straightened and stepped forward, offering a small, respectful bow, just as he had been trained. "Welcome to Port Helios," he said in calm, clear English. His translator would handle the rest. "I am Evan Cross, cultural liaison for the human delegation." The lead Virelian, a tall figure with strong, bright patterns across his face, nodded once. "We acknowledge your presence," the alien said through the translator, his voice smooth and even. "We will observe your customs." Evan gestured gently toward the hall. "Please, make yourselves comfortable." The Virelians moved forward in a slow, graceful line. Their glowing markings reflected softly on the polished floor. Evan followed at a respectful distance, watching carefully in case anyone looked confused or uncomfortable. That was when he noticed her. She stood near the back of the group, slightly apart from the others. Her light patterns were faint, almost dull compared to the bright glow of the others. They flickered gently, like a candle in a draft. Evan frowned slightly. In his training, he had learned that Virelians with weaker patterns often held lower social standing. They were expected to stay quiet and avoid drawing attention. But there was something else about her. While the others looked forward, focused and formal, she looked around the room. Her glowing eyes moved from species to species, from food to floating lights, from the wide window showing space beyond. She looked curious. Evan found himself walking closer without fully realizing it. He stopped a few steps away, unsure. He wasn't supposed to speak to individual members unless spoken to first, but something about her quiet presence pulled at him. She noticed him and turned her head slightly. Her patterns shifted, becoming even softer. Evan's heart beat faster. Say nothing, he told himself. Follow the rules, but then he thought of how alone she looked, standing just outside her group, her light barely seen among the others. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Your light patterns are beautiful. The hall went silent. It wasn't a loud silence. It was the kind that felt heavy, like the air itself had stopped moving. Evan's eyes widened. He had broken protocol. Compliments were personal. Personal meant emotional. Emotional meant risky. Several Virelians turned their heads at once. Their patterns shifted sharply, glowing brighter. The woman froze. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then her light flared. The soft blue lines across her skin brightened, spreading and growing more complex, like a sunrise made of living light. The glow reflected off the walls and floor, painting the hall in gentle blue and white. Evan took a small step back, his heart pounding. Had he insulted her, challenged her status, caused a problem? The lead Virelian stepped forward. His patterns flashed in sharp, quick movements. The woman raised one long hand slightly, her glow steadied. "I wish to speak," she said. The translator carried her voice clearly across the quiet hall. The lead Virelian hesitated, then nodded once and stepped back. The woman turned fully toward Evan. Her eyes met his, and for the first time he felt like she was really looking at him, not just observing a human, but seeing a person. "You spoke to me as an individual," she said. "Not as a role, not as a rank." Evan swallowed. "I just meant what I said." Her glow shifted again, softer now, warmer. "This is not our way," she said, "but it is yours." Around them, the other guests slowly began talking again, the moment passing like a ripple in water. The reception continued, but something had changed. The woman inclined her head slightly. "I am called Salith." "Evan," he replied. "It's nice to meet you." They stood in quiet for a moment, surrounded by the sounds of many worlds mixing together. Later that night, long after the guests had left and the lights in the hall had dimmed, Evan sat alone in his small station room. He replayed the moment over and over in his mind. Had he made things worse for her? Had he caused trouble in her group? His wrist device chimed softly. Incoming request, the screen read, "Private meeting. Location, Observation Deck 7. Evan hesitated. The observation decks were usually empty at this hour. Most people were asleep or working in deeper parts of the station. He stood, pulled on his jacket, and stepped into the hallway. The station was quieter now. The lights were dimmed, and the distant hum of engines and systems echoed softly through the metal walls. He took a transport lift up to Deck 7 and walked down the curved corridor until he reached the wide glass wall that looked out into open space. Salith was waiting there. Her glow was low but steady, painting a soft circle of light around her feet. "You came," she said. "I wasn't sure why you called me," Evan admitted. "Is there a problem?" She turned to face the stars, then back to him. "You changed something today," she said. "Not just for me, for how I see your kind." Evan frowned slightly. "I just gave a compliment." "For you, perhaps," she said. "For us, it is something else." She stepped closer. "We are taught that connection is dangerous, that seeing others too closely leads to loss of control, to change." "And that's bad?" Evan asked. "For those who wish to keep things the same," Salith replied. She lifted her hand, and a small glowing shape appeared in the air between them. It grew into a floating map of stars and lines, more detailed than anything Evan had ever seen. "This is not a public chart," she said quietly. "It shows what my people and many others hide." Evan stared at the map. One area near the center glowed brighter than the rest. He recognized the pattern. It was human space. "What is this?" he asked. Salith's light dimmed slightly. "It is a warning," she said, "and a choice." Evan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cool station air. "What do you mean?" She looked at him, really looked at him, and her glow softened again. "You saw me as a person," she said. "So now I will treat you as one, not as a representative, not as a symbol." The stars on the map shifted, lines connecting distant worlds, forming a hidden network across the galaxy. "This is the truth behind our peaceful faces," Salith said. "And once you know it, you cannot unknow it." Evan swallowed, his heart beating fast. "Then show me," he said. Salith nodded, and the galaxy in all its quiet beauty beyond the glass suddenly felt a lot less peaceful than it had a moment before. Evan did not sleep that night. He sat on the edge of his narrow bed, the soft light of the station glowing along the walls, his mind still filled with the image of the star map Salith had shown him. The lines and symbols had looked simple at first, just routes and systems, but the longer he stared, the more he had understood that it was something else. It was a pattern of control. When the morning cycle began, Evan felt like he was walking through a dream. The station slowly woke around him. Doors slid open. Voices echoed through the halls. The smell of warm food and strange alien spices filled the air, but everything felt different now. At breakfast, he sat with other human staff members, listening to them talk about schedules, meetings, and trade routes. He nodded at the right moments and smiled when someone made a joke, but his thoughts were far away. He kept seeing the glowing lines on the map. After the meal, his wrist device chimed again. Official duty request, the screen read. Assignment, VIRELLIAN delegation support. Evan stood and took a deep breath. He found the Virelians in one of the quieter meeting rooms near the outer ring of the station. The room had a wide, curved window that showed a slow turn of distant stars. Soft light filled the space, and the air was cool and still. Salith stood near the window, her glow calm and steady. The lead Virelian was there too, along with two others. Their light patterns were brighter and more complex, moving in sharp, controlled lines. "Human Evan Cross," the lead Virelian said as Evan entered. "You will observe." Evan nodded. "Of course." The meeting began with polite words and formal talk about trade, shared research, and station rules. Evan listened carefully, but his attention kept drifting back to Salith. She did not speak much. When she did, it was short and precise. But once, when the lead Virelian turned away, she looked at Evan, just for a second. And in that brief moment, she tilted her head slightly toward a side door. Evan's heart beat faster. A few minutes later, the meeting ended. The Virelians filed out in their quiet, orderly way. Evan followed, pretending to check his device. Salith slowed just enough for him to walk beside her. "Walk," she said softly. They moved down a long hallway that curved away from the main station paths. The sounds of voices and machines slowly faded, replaced by the gentle hum of distant systems. They stopped near a small maintenance window that looked out into open space. There were no people here, only stars. "You should not have come last night," Salith said. Evan frowned. "Then why did you call me?" "Because I could not stop myself," she replied. "That is what you humans do to others. You make them act against their training." Evan shifted his weight. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You did not," she said. "You caused truth." She lifted her hand again, and a smaller version of the star map appeared between them. This time, it zoomed in on several distant systems, far from human space. "These worlds were once like yours," Salith said. "Young, curious, open." The map shifted. The systems dimmed one by one. "They are now silent." Evan's throat felt dry. "What happened to them?" "The continuance," she said. Evan had heard the word before in human briefings. It was a name that came up in old alien records, always vague, always surrounded by missing information. "Who are they?" he asked. "Not a who," Salith replied. "A belief, a system, a promise that the galaxy can be kept stable if all things remain in their place." She moved the map again. This time it showed lines connecting powerful ancient species. "These civilizations guide trade, travel, and law. They decide which worlds grow and which remain small. They do not rule openly. They advise." Evan clenched his hands. "That sounds like control," Salith's glow flickered. "It is control, but most accept it because it is quiet and gentle." The map shifted once more. A bright mark appeared at the edge of the network, human space. "You are not quiet," Salith said. "You do not remain in your place." Evan let out a small, nervous laugh. "We're just trying to survive out here." "You do more than survive," she said. "You connect." She showed him another layer of the map. Lines spread out from human worlds, not just to governments or stations, but to small outposts, research teams, and civilian groups across many species. "Your people talk to everyone," she said. "You share stories, music, ideas. You form friendships where others form treaties." Evan thought of human traders teaching songs to alien children, of engineers staying late to help fix ships that weren't even human, of artists trading designs with species who didn't even use the same senses. "It's just how we are," he said. Salith studied him. "It is why you are marked." "Marked for what?" Evan asked. Salith hesitated. "Observation," she said, "and decision." A distant vibration ran through the station, so soft Evan almost didn't notice it. The lights dimmed for a fraction of a second, then returned to normal. Evan looked around. "What was that?" Salith's glow tightened. "Arrival." Evan felt a chill. "Arrival of what?" They hurried back toward the main corridors. The station was louder now. People were talking in raised voices. Security drones moved overhead, their lights flashing. Screens along the walls lit up with new messages. "Unidentified fleet detected." Beyond it, in the dark of space, shapes were appearing. Large shapes, Long, smooth ships, darker than the stars behind them. They moved in perfect formation, slow and steady like something ancient and patient. "How many?" someone whispered. "Too many," another voice replied. Salith stood beside Evan, her glow faint but steady. "They are early," she said. "Who are they?" Evan asked, though he already knew. "The Continuance's observers," she replied. "They do not come with weapons, they come with questions." A human officer pushed through the crowd. Everyone remained calm. "This is a diplomatic situation." Evan watched the ships, his mind racing. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Salith looked at him. "Now they decide if you are a problem." The first message came through minutes later. It appeared on every screen in every language. "We request dialogue. Representatives of humanity, present your liaison." Evan's wrist device vibrated. "Call request, Central Command." He stared at the screen, his hands shaking slightly. "They want you," Salith said. "I'm not important," Evan replied. "I'm just a junior liaison." "You are the one who spoke to me as a person," she said. "That makes you very important." Evan took a deep breath and accepted the call. A human commander appeared on the screen. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "Evan Cross," she said. "What did you do?" Evan swallowed. "I talked to someone, I listened." The commander sighed. "They want to meet you, we don't know why, but right now they're holding all traffic in and out of the station." Evan looked back at the dark ships outside. "If I go," he asked, "will they leave everyone else alone?" The commander hesitated. "We don't know." Salith stepped closer. "They will," she said. "For now, this is how they work. They test one piece before they move the board." Evan closed his eyes for a moment. He thought of Earth, of blue skies and oceans, of people who had no idea what was happening above them. "I'll go," he said. The commander nodded slowly. "We'll prepare a transport." The call ended. Evan turned to Salith. "You could have stayed quiet. You didn't have to show me any of this." Salith's glow warmed slightly. "No, I did." She reached out and placed her long hand gently over his. "For the first time, someone saw me," she said. "So now I will stand with you." Around them, the station buzzed with fear and confusion. Ships remained frozen in their docks. Voices echoed through the halls. Outside, the dark fleet waited, silent and still. Evan straightened his shoulders. He was just one human, but he wasn't alone. And for the first time, the galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans refused to stay in their place. The transport ship was small and quiet. Evan sat in a narrow seat near the front, his hands resting on his knees. The soft hum of the engines filled the space around him. Across from him, Salith stood, her glow low but steady like a calm light in the dark. Two human pilots sat at the controls, their faces serious and focused. No one spoke. Through the front window, the dark shapes of the Continuance ships grew larger. They were massive, smooth, and silent, like shadows carved out of space itself. Evan took a slow breath. He had expected fear. He had expected panic. What he felt instead was something strange and steady. Resolve. The transport slowed and stopped near the largest ship. A soft beam of light reached out from the alien vessel and surrounded them. The air in the transport shifted, and a moment later, the world seemed to fold. When Evan's vision cleared, he was standing in a wide, open chamber. The floor was smooth and dark, reflecting faint points of light from the high ceiling. The walls curved upward, forming a vast dome. The air felt cool and clean, almost like a quiet forest after rain. In the center of the chamber stood three figures. They were not Virelian. They were not human. They were tall and thin, their bodies wrapped in flowing shapes of light and shadow that shifted slowly, as if they were made of moving stars. Their faces were hard to focus on, like looking at something too bright or too distant at the same time. Salith stepped back slightly, her glow dimming in respect. Evan took one step forward. "I'm Evan Cross," he said, his voice echoing softly in the wide space. "I'm a cultural liaison for humanity." The figures did not move, but their voices filled the chamber, not loud, not soft, but everywhere at once. "We know who you are," they said. "You are the point of disturbance." Evan swallowed. "I didn't mean to disturb anything." "Intention is not required for effect," one of the figures replied. "Your kind alters systems simply by existing within them." Evan frowned. "We just talk to people, we make friends, we share ideas." "Yes," the figure said, "that is the problem." Salith shifted beside him, but Evan stayed where he was. "What's so dangerous about connection?" Evan asked. The figures raised their long, glowing arms, and the air in front of them filled with moving images. Evan saw worlds rising and falling. Great cities forming, spreading, then breaking apart. alliances growing, then collapsing into chaos. You bond across boundaries, the figure said. You weaken structures built over thousands of years. You replace order with emotion. Evan looked at the images. Or maybe we replace fear with understanding. The figures were silent for a moment. You are young, they said. You do not see the cost of collapse. Evan thought of Salith standing alone at the reception, of her faint glow among brighter patterns, of how her light had flared when he spoke to her. I see the cost of silence, he said. The figures lowered their arms, the images faded. Your species has reached a point of choice, they said. You will either be guided into acceptable paths or you will be isolated from the greater network of civilizations. Evan's heart pounded. Isolated how? Trade restricted, travel limited, communication filtered, the figure replied. Your growth slowed. Your influence contained. Salith stepped forward. You would cage them, she said. We would protect the system, the figures answered. Evan took a deep breath. You're afraid of us. The figures did not deny it. We have seen what happens when disruptors spread unchecked, they said. Evan nodded slowly. Then let everyone see us, not just you. The figures tilted their heads slightly. Explain. Evan's mind raced. You watch us in secret. You judge us without letting others decide for themselves. If we're really that dangerous, then let the whole galaxy know why. Salith's glow brightened slightly. You want to expose us, one of the figures said. I want to talk, Evan replied. That's what humans do. The figures were quiet again. Outside the chamber, far away on Port Helios, something else was happening. The station's communication networks lit up. At first, it was small. A human engineer sent a message to a friend on a nearby alien outpost, warning them about the continuance ships. A trader recorded a short video, showing the dark fleet outside the station, and shared it on an open channel. A group of artists streamed live from the observation deck, talking about fear, curiosity, and what it meant to stand on the edge of something unknown. The messages spread. Across human space and then beyond it, screens lit up. Conversations started. Questions were asked. On distant worlds, alien citizens watched humans speak openly about the hidden network that guided their governments. Some were confused, some were angry, some were curious. Back in the chamber, the figures felt the shift. Your influence moves faster than we predicted, they said. Evan met their glowing gaze. We don't need permission to care about people. The figures raised their arms again and a new image appeared. This time it showed Salith. Her glow was bright, strong, and complex, no longer faint or small. Your presence changes even our own, they said. This one defies her role because of you. Salith did not step back. I defy my role because I choose to, she said. The figures studied her. Choice leads to fracture, they said. Choice leads to growth, Evan replied. The chamber trembled softly as something changed in the great ship around them. One of the figures turned its gaze away, as if listening to something far beyond the room. The network is destabilizing, it said. Multiple species are requesting independent contact with humanity. Evan felt a small smile pull at his lips. Salith looked at him, her glow warm and bright. Outside on Port Helios, the station was alive with activity. Virelian citizens spoke openly with humans for the first time, asking questions, sharing stories. Other species joined in, forming small groups in halls and observation decks. Security drones hovered, unsure of what to do. There was no violence, no shouting, just talking. The figures in the chamber lowered their arms. You spread uncertainty, they said. Evan nodded. We spread possibility. The figures were silent for a long moment. You are asking the galaxy to choose, they said, not to follow. Yes, Evan replied, that's the difference. The lights in the chamber dimmed slightly. Then we will issue our own choice, the figures said. A new message appeared in the air between them, glowing bright and clear. Notice to all network members. Evan stared. What does that mean? It means, Salith said softly, they cannot control you anymore, only respond to you. The figures stepped back, their forms fading slightly into the shadows of the chamber. But know this, they said, the galaxy will not remain as it was. Not after you, Evan let out a slow breath. We never wanted it to. The chamber shifted and the world folded again. Moments later, Evan and Salith stood back inside the transport ship. The pilots stared at their controls. We're clear, one of them said. The fleet is moving away. Through the front window, the dark ships were turning, slowly drifting back into the stars. Evan sank into his seat, his hands shaking now that the moment had passed. Salith placed her hand on the wall beside him, steadying herself. Back on Port Helios, cheers and confused laughter filled the halls as the station's screens showed the fleet retreating. Messages flooded in from across space. Request for cultural exchange. Evan stared at his wrist device as the list grew longer and longer. "We did this," he asked. Salith's glow pulsed gently. "You did what you always do," she said. "You spoke." The transport docked and the doors slid open. As Evan stepped out, he was met by a crowd of humans and aliens alike. Some looked relieved, some looked excited, some looked uncertain. The human commander pushed through, her face full of questions. What happened in there? Evan looked around at all the different faces, all the different shapes and lights and eyes. "We told the truth," he said, "and we let everyone else decide what to do with it." Salith stepped forward beside him, her glow shining brighter than ever. "My people will not stand behind shadows anymore," she said. "We will stand with those who speak." Around them, others began to nod. A tall feathered being stepped closer. A small round creature rolled forward. Even one of the metal-bodied life forms paused near the edge of the group. Evan felt something shift in the air, something bigger than any ship or station. The galaxy was no longer quiet. It was talking. Later, as the crowd slowly thinned and the station returned to a new kind of normal, Evan and Salith stood again by the wide glass wall, looking out at the stars. "I didn't plan any of this," Evan said. Salith tilted her head. "Neither did I." They watched a small human ship leave the station, its lights blinking as it jumped into open space, carrying messages to another world. "Do you think it will work?" Evan asked. "This open galaxy idea?" Salith's glow softened. "I think it has already begun." Far away in the dark between stars, the old network of control was unraveling, not with explosions or battles, but with conversations and choices. And at the center of it all was a species that refused to stay silent. Humans. The stars looked different now. Evan stood by the wide glass wall of Port Helios and watched ships come and go. Their lights moved like slow fireflies in the dark. Some were human. Some were alien. Many were mixed crews, something that had been rare before but now felt almost normal. Weeks had passed since the continuance fleet had turned away. The station had not gone back to how it was before. It had become louder, not with alarms or fear, but with voices. Conversations filled the halls at all hours. Humans talked with Virelians. Traders from distant systems shared meals with species that had once avoided each other. Children of different worlds chased floating lights through the open halls, laughing in sounds that mixed and overlapped. The galaxy had started to talk to itself. Evan still wore the same simple gray jacket. He was still officially a junior liaison. But now, when he walked through the station, people stopped him. They asked questions. They thanked him. Some just wanted to shake his hand or touch his sleeve, like he was proof that something had really changed. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a bridge. Salith walked beside him, her glow bright and strong. Her light patterns had grown more complex over time, not in the sharp, formal way of the old Virelian leaders, but in flowing, personal shapes that shifted with her thoughts and feelings. Other Virelians noticed. Some copied her. Others whispered. But more and more, they stood closer to humans instead of apart. Evan and Salith stopped near a long table where food from a dozen worlds had been laid out. A small group of aliens and humans sat together, sharing a meal. One of the metal-bodied beings carefully lifted a human cup, studying it before trying to drink. A human engineer gently showed them how to tilt it. Salith's glow warmed. "This would have been unthinkable before," she said. Evan smiled. "It still feels a little strange to me." They moved on, heading toward a quieter section of the station. But the quiet didn't last. Evan's wrist device chimed. Priority message. "They're reaching out again," Evan said. The device projected a soft image in the air. One of the tall, glowing figures from the chamber appeared. "Evan Cross," the figure said. "The open variable continues to expand." Evan crossed his arms. "That's what happens when people talk." The figure studied him. "Several member civilizations have withdrawn from the network. Trade paths have changed. Power structures are shifting." "Good," Evan said simply. "This level of change leads to instability," the figure replied. "Change always does," Evan said. "So does staying the same for too long." There was a pause. "The continuance does not seek conflict," the figure said. "We seek balance." Salith stepped closer to Evan. "Balance that you control." The figure turned its gaze to her. "Your people were among the founders of the system you now question." Salith's glow flickered, but she did not look away. And now we question it. The figure returned its attention to Evan. We offer a final proposal. Evan raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. You will serve as a formal representative between humanity and the network, the figure said. A controlled channel, a voice we can predict. Evan laughed softly. That kind of misses the point, doesn't it? The figure did not respond. I don't want to be the only voice, Evan continued. I want everyone to have one. The figure's light shifted. That path leads to uncertainty, Evan nodded. That's where growth lives. The image faded. Evan lowered his arm, letting the device go dark. Salith looked at him. You refused them, Evan exhaled slowly. Yeah, I think I did. They stood there for a moment, listening to the distant sounds of the station. Are you afraid? Salith asked. Evan thought about it. He thought about Earth, still far away and peaceful under blue skies. He thought about the first humans who had left their planet, not knowing what they would find among the stars. He thought about all the alien faces he now recognized, all the names he had learned. A little, he said, but I think I'd be more afraid if nothing changed. That same day, a message went out across open channels, not from governments, not from the continuance, from people. A Virelian scientist shared her research freely with a human school. A group of human musicians invited alien listeners to help write a new song using sounds from different worlds. Traders opened routes without waiting for approval from ancient councils. Small choices, big ripples. On a distant world covered in wide red fields, a group of children gathered around a human tablet, watching a live stream from Port Helios. They pointed and laughed at the floating lights and strange foods. On a cold, dark station near the edge of known space, a lonely alien miner listened to a human story broadcast, hearing about oceans and storms for the first time. The galaxy was becoming a web of shared moments. Days later, Evan was called to the main hall. A large crowd had gathered. Humans and aliens stood together in a loose circle. At the center stood Salith and several Virelians, including the old lead delegate. His light patterns were still sharp and formal, but there was something new in them, a hint of softness. Salith stepped forward. My people have made a decision, she said, her voice carrying across the hall. We will no longer hide behind the continuance. We will stand as ourselves. A quiet wave of sound moved through the crowd. The lead Virelian nodded slowly. We were taught that safety comes from distance, he said, but we have seen that strength can come from closeness. He turned toward Evan. You showed us this without meaning to, he said. Evan shifted uncomfortably. I just said something nice. Salith's glow pulsed. And that was enough. The crowd broke into soft laughter and gentle applause in many different sounds and forms. Later, as the station's lights dimmed into its night cycle, Evan and Salith returned to the observation deck. The stars were bright and endless. Do you ever think about what comes next? Evan asked. All the time, Salith replied. Evan leaned against the glass. I don't think the continuance is going to disappear. They'll keep watching, keep worrying, Salith nodded. Yes, but they no longer stand alone. A small human ship passed by the window, followed by a Virelian vessel. They flew side by side, matching speed. Evan smiled. You know, he said, back home people always told stories about how humans would change the galaxy one day. Big battles, huge ships, powerful weapons. Salith tilted her head. And instead it was a compliment, Evan said. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Far away in a quiet chamber deep within an ancient ship, the figures of the continuance watched streams of data flow past them. Messages, art. Shared knowledge, requests for help, offers of friendship. The network they had built to guide the galaxy was becoming something else. A conversation they could not fully control. One of the figures spoke. The disruptors do not conquer, it said. They connect. Another figure responded, and through connection they reshape. Back on Port Helios, Evan's wrist device chimed again. This time the message was simple. Request for human liaison. Evan looked at Salith and laughed softly. Looks like we're not done yet. Salith's glow brightened. I hope we never are. They walked back into the station together, into the noise and light and movement of a galaxy that was slowly, carefully learning how to be open. And far across the stars, on worlds that had never heard a human voice before, screens lit up and messages arrived. Not commands, not warnings, just greetings. The truth humanity had become was not one of power or fear. It was this. Where humans went, no one stayed a stranger for long.